Hello. So, for this session, I want to talk about times and seasons, specifically the watches. Um, One of the aspects that I've learned is how to engage time to a certain extent, or rather, just how to make the times and seasons work for me. So, what I'll be attempting to do is share with you how to work with the watches. So, the watches themselves are time slots. They happen every day, and kind of think of them as boosters, supports for certain aspects of life. Um, Now, these watches cannot hurt you. They're not. There is no punishment for moving out of sync with them. There's only benefit if you choose to live in sync with them to some extent. So they happen in 3 hour blockages, and this is kind of synced up with the way that time is structured in the Hebraic calendar. In that, the first watch begins at 6 p.m. and lasts until 9 p.m. Now, this is a time period of recreation, of practice, and fellowship. Uh, Now, as I talk about these things, you may notice in your own life that you've already somewhat been living by this and just didn't know that there was a reason to it, spiritually at least. Now, 6 p.m., a lot of things, a lot of get togethers, a lot of fellowships, a lot of community based things, a lot of recreational things kind of happen between the 6 to 9 time slot. And that's what it's for, recreation, doing whatever you want to do, having some fun, relaxing. They say work hard, play hard. This is the time slot for playing, for having fun, for relaxing, doing what you like to do. This is a time for your hobbies, practice. This is a time for you to exercise, for you to, whether it be spiritual exercises, physical exercise, mental exercise, practice, getting your routine together. Um, and like I said, this is a time slot for fellowship, getting together with people, meeting up, things of that nature, where you'll see the most benefit in those areas should you do them within the 6 to 9 time slot. The second watch is from 9 p.m. to midnight. And this is all about repentance and deliverance. Now, repentance doesn't mean to be really sorry and beg God for forgiveness. That's not repentance. Repentance is changing your mind. It's a sustained change of thinking, which causes you to behave differently. So, repentance, in a sense, is kind of like reflection. Uh, Repentance, deliverance, you're realigning yourself, getting back in tune, getting back in sync with who you really are. This is the best time period for that. Um, for a lot of people, they struggle to sleep around this time because their mind starts to race and they start to think about themselves and they start to reflect and they kind of start to get their stuff together. If you're uh, Whether you're the one ministering it or the one that's in need of it, there's a grace for getting set free around this time. Letting go of bad habits, fighting off addiction of any sort, getting out of bondage of any sort. This time slot is all about freedom, getting back in your identity, and you can't be who you really are if you're in bondage. So they go hand in hand. It's getting rid of the bondages that may have us, as well as the bondages we may intentionally have ourselves in. Getting rid of deceptions in some cases is all repentance, reflecting on who God is and who you really are. Just stepping back into your identity. So then we have the 12 to 3 time slot. This is the third watch. This is all about meditation, study, and revelation. This is that revelatory time slot where you grow in what you know. You really advance, you get some clarity, some wisdom, some understanding, maybe some counsel. This is where your comprehension begins to increase. If you're engaging your soul, this is where you may tap into some of those clair abilities or clear abilities. There's a grace for that in this time period. For you to study, for you to read, for you to increase your mental capacity, to work on yourself educationally. So then we go into everyone's favorite watch, the fourth watch, which begins at 3 a.m. and lasts until 6 a.m. Now, some people call this the witching hour. I'm not too sure why. But this is the time period of spiritual activity, growth. If you're trying to access the supernatural, if you're trying to grow in power, if you're trying to grow in quality of spirit, the quality of power, the quantity of power, if you're just trying to jump on the charger, dive into some power, this is the time period to engage God, to begin to receive power, to begin to engage. If you're trying to learn how to see in the spirit, how to hear in the spirit, how to anything supernatural, if you're looking for upgrades, it's like, hey, right now, as a healer, I'm only good at doing like headaches, colds, maybe some back pain. I'm trying to start clearing out cancers, arthritis. I'm trying to raise the dead. This is the time period for engaging for more. This is the upgrade for spiritual capacity time period. This is the most spiritual growth. This is the most spiritual activity. This is a great time to try to fellowship with God, fellowship with the seven spirits, seeing angels, all of that stuff. Now, this is just the fourth watch. There's 8 in total. And after this watch, they recycle. As in the next 6 to 9, 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. is the same thing. It's recreation, fellowship, and then it continues. So you actually have 2 opportunities a day to benefit from these. So if let's just say you don't want to get up early to pray at 3 a.m. in order to grow in the supernatural, you can get up or set aside some time between 3 p.m. and 6 p.m. and you'll receive the same benefits. Or if you just want to take advantage of it, pray in both. Like I said at the beginning of this, that they won't hurt you either way. You won't be hindered because you tried to pray for strength, but it was noon. You won't be hindered because you were trying to gain some clarity or grow in revelation, or you were trying to study, but it was 9 o'clock. That's not how this works. If you choose to engage the right thing at the right time, you'll find it significantly easier than any other time. So hopefully this will help you navigate knowing when to pray, when to engage, when to benefit, when to do what throughout the day. And as I continue to talk about engaging times with the times and seasons and things like that, I'm going to try to talk about it from a bunch of different angles. I already have a session on Patreon where I talk about times and seasons. I go over the watches. I go over the Hebraic months. I go over the Zodiac or the Mazzaroth. I cover all of that, and that's already on Patreon. For those of you who don't want to wait for me to do it on YouTube. Recently, I had an event. I did 24 hours of prayer where I and a small group met together in LaPorte, and we prayed for 24 hours straight. I'm the weirdo who didn't go to sleep for the whole thing. But it was great. And one of the fascinating things that I enjoyed about that, outside of just the presence that was in the room, like we really were somewhere else while on Earth, Outside of all that fun supernatural stuff, what I enjoyed was seeing how naturally everyone flowed into the watches without me having to instruct them to do so. Just as they surrendered to the spirit and stayed in sync, they found themselves doing deliverance and calling people back into their identity at the right time for it. uh, they began to release prophetic words at the right time. People started to engage for power at the right time. People started to gain revelatory insight. People started to gain vision for their life and how to put some things together. They started to get some counsel and some wisdom, all at these perfect times. So truthfully, if you live a spirit-centered life, if you live a spirit-led life, you'll automatically flow in sync with these time periods. So consider this video, for those of you who are already living this way, as confirmation that you're not just a weirdo. You're a weirdo that's in sync. So, so that concludes this video. As before, links in the description for my book, for the Patreon, for the Discord server. I have some things coming up soon. Patreon's the first to know about them. So if you want to stay in the loop with what I have planned for y'all over this next year, join Patreon. Or at the very least the Discord community, where people who are all growing in their spiritual journey, their spiritual development, are always in fellowship with one another. So with that being said, that concludes this session. Later.